Like I said, I will have my eyes on the chat. But let's go ahead and jump in. So like I said, happy Monday. Thank you everyone for joining us for getting ready to enter the world of social media. And as you might assume with a title like that, this webinar is a little bit more focused on the beginner level of knowledge. We will be discussing what social media looks like for you as a business owner, what the options are out there. And this is actually a webinar we do quite often as a precursor to anyone that's jumping in on our social media series. So we do present in detail on each social media platform once a month. This month we will be doing Instagram. I believe that's next week. So if after today's session you want to learn a little bit more about Instagram, November, I think we're doing Pinterest, et cetera, et cetera. You know, we go through each of these platforms in detail. In today's session, we're going to be doing a brief overview of what they all are and where you might want to start. So some of the goals that we talked about for this session in the description when you registered were being able to make a market research plan and figuring out what the next step for you is. And I know small businesses love to just jump in. They want to get on the social media, which is great. It's very exciting to be there, but you want to make sure you're only on platforms that make sense for your business. So hopefully this will give you some interesting enlightenment on, if LinkedIn is better for you, if Pinterest is better for you, do you need to be on Snapchat? Do you not need to be on Snapchat? Those are the questions you want to think about before you invest all of this time and energy in putting yourself on platforms that might not make sense for your business. So with that said, I'll do my normal introduction here, which is this webinar is brought to you by Temple University Small Business Development Center. We are part of a nationally accredited network of SBDCs, and there are actually over 1,000 small business development centers in the United States. We're funded by the federal government at the Small Business Administration, and then each center is funded by their state government and then hosted at a local university. Temple is here in Philadelphia at Temple University, and we are just one of 16 centers in Pennsylvania. So you might be joining us from over by Scranton, Harrisburg, Pittsburgh, wherever you are. We are more than happy to have you online with us today. And if perchance you're joining us from a different state and you're looking for additional services afterwards, you can always just Google your state name and then SBDC and find the SBDC network near you. So I'm going to go into a little bit about myself here. Who am I? Why am I the person talking to you about this? Like I said earlier, my name is Sarah Mailloux, and I'm our Digital Transformation Program Manager. So I do have significant experience working in digital marketing and e-commerce. Besides working within a couple different SBDCs, I obviously am here at Temple. I used to work at the Delaware SBDC Lead Office. I actually have done marketing and event management full-time for a couple different nonprofits and chambers, but I'm also a solopreneur myself. So I know what some of you might be going through being a small business owner, trying to figure out how to do it when it's just yourself or just a limited staff. I've been there and I can definitely relate to that struggle. I also have some experience in wealth management and reporting that kind of was in between some of my different work here. And I actually am in international business. So I am export certified. I am ideation and commercialization certified for anyone who's in the technology space or looking at, SBIR, STTR grants. So you are more than welcome to reach out to me if you have questions in any of those fields. But here at Temple, I run our digital transformation programming, which is why I'm here today to talk to you a little bit more about getting into social media. So this webinar is going to be recorded. You will get a copy of my slides. You will get a link to the recording, and you will get that normally within 1 to 2 business days after the session. So let's jump right in. What is the agenda for today? We do have this webinar slated to be about an hour and a half. I will probably be talking for about an hour, maybe an hour, 10 minutes of it, depending on how quickly I get through some of the information, but please do feel free to put questions in the chat throughout the session. If something comes into your head, let's go ahead and answer it right then and there. We do also leave time at the end of the session if people have additional questions. We've noticed with mostly everything in the social media series, we need that extra time because people have questions. If there are no questions, that's fine too, and we'll just close it out a little bit early. But I know that this is a very interesting and exciting topic for many small businesses. So what is our webinar going to look like today? First and foremost, we're going to do an introduction to social media and its benefits. So like I said earlier, we're taking this from the bare bones, the very beginner level. Some of you might say, yeah, Sarah, I know what social media is. I use Facebook every day. We're going to just dive into this a little bit for some of the people on here who are maybe never online, who have never used a social media platform. What even is social media? We use that term so often. We need to describe that better so you understand what it means for your business. And then, like I said, we're going to take a look at the most popular social media platforms, why you might want to use them. And then we're going to go into probably the most important part for all of you, which is now that you know what the most important platforms are, how do you use that for your business? What are the next steps that you can tangibly take after this webinar to get your business on social media? We go over some very common social media FAQs. So like I said, you guys might have questions. We will also go over some of the most common questions we see here at the SBDC, and then talk about what next steps might look like for you. So one of my favorite things is to give you an idea of what the next steps are when you come out of one of these webinars. So, introduction to social media and its benefits. I'm going to pause right here. I'm just going to check the chat. I don't think we had any questions yet, but I will be pausing in between each of these topics to review if anything's going on. But right now it looks good. So if you have something, stick it in the chat and we'll get started here. So like I said, this might be the most general slide to start with, but I like to start from this perspective, just so we're all on the same page. We're all using the same description of what social media is as we go into the rest of this webinar. So what is social media? It's not just the Facebook and Instagrams. People might be using Pinterest or YouTube, Snapchat. You might be saying, what are all of those platforms and how do they all connect? Really, what it means is it's a computer-based technology that is used to connect people socially. So it's the idea that you're facilitating the sharing of ideas, thoughts, information across an online platform. So there are also other platforms out there that utilize this that we won't go into today, but even things like Reddit forums or blogs, those are still part of this network of social media, of ways you are basically connecting online and sharing your information. The reason social media came to be was to create personal networks originally, right? I mean, like I said earlier, some of you might be saying, hey, Sarah, I already know what Facebook is. I have a Facebook personally. Many people do. Many people have many of these platforms. And the idea was that you want to build a virtual network and build communities of people. Even with Facebook, Facebook was originally made for people that were in older generations to reconnect with old college colleagues or high school colleagues, you know, and it's really transformed from that today. People create a Facebook when they're in high school now, you know, so it's really come a long way from that perspective. What's really interesting is people get to create user-generated profiles on basically all of these platforms where they can showcase their information and then share with people they're interested in sharing with. So many of these platforms let you limit who you're sharing your information with, what are you sharing, and in this ever increasingly digitalized world, we're not just talking about being on a computer anymore. People can look at this information on a tablet or a smartphone as well. And in actuality, there are many people who don't even use their computer for social media anymore. Or let's take it one step further, if we're going to be honest, even for purchasing products, many people use just their smartphone. So you want to make sure you're using apps and programs where you can reach the people that you're trying to get to buy your product that are maybe only using their smartphone. But we're going to talk about how each of these kind of lets you interact a little bit differently. They all kind of have the same underlying idea, which is how do I build a network? But like I said, they evolved a little bit. It was just a way to interact with friends, family, but businesses learned that you can actually get online and share your information as well. You can make connections and virtual networks. And I don't just mean sharing your business idea with your friends and family, but reaching even farther into the web of people that are online. And it was actually a very useful way to connect with people. We really saw this huge migration from the door-to-door salesman style of marketing, where you were either just trying to reach someone by handing out a flyer or knocking on their door, or maybe being on a TV commercial, radio commercial. And probably in the early, well, I would say mid 2000s, early 2010s, we saw this huge push towards marketing on social media and online because that's where everyone was going. So I will say, I'll put a pin in that for now, and we'll talk a little bit more about the next iteration of that later. But really, social media became up and coming for many small businesses and even larger businesses. And you might have noticed, if you have a personal Facebook, if you have a personal Instagram, you might be seeing ads for businesses. They are utilizing information on social media to help them grow and get new customers through a ton of different marketing tactics. And some of those we'll talk about today. What I really like here in this third bullet is that what is social media for you? It's power. It's a powerful tool. It's very low cost to no cost, which is very convenient for small businesses. And it connects you with people around the world in a way we could not do so before. So even though social media might seem like petty or just communicating things about your food, or you're thinking, well, I only go on there to message my family, there are a ton of different ways it's utilized, but you can capitalize on that for your business. There are over 3 billion users. So by far, this is one of the biggest ways to get online and have you show up for people. One thing I do want to say though is it's ever changing and ever evolving. So even as I'm talking to you, there are new social media platforms being created. If I had made this presentation 2 years ago, I probably wouldn't have put TikTok in it. And if you're looking at me and saying, I don't even know what TikTok is, we will be talking about that one today as well. But everything is always changing. So you really want to make sure you're keeping an eye on what's going on and who's showing up where. Users do tend to be a little bit younger when it comes to social media, like 18 to 29-year-olds. We're talking about late Gen Zs and the younger millennials. They grew up in a world where social media, like I said, you got on it in high school, maybe even earlier. People are going on there. Many people in social media have some type of education, have some relative wealth. But as we'll see as we go through each of the platforms, there's a huge spread in who's on what platform. And no matter what demographic and what age group you're trying to reach, I guarantee you there is a social media platform you will find these people on. So now that you know one of the benefits, right? The benefit of being on social media is people will find you. But how will they find you? How is this helping the big picture for your business? Is it bringing people to your website? Are they actually buying products, or do they just know you exist? Because ultimately you want them to actually provide, get your services or get your product. You want to make money out of all of this time and effort you're putting into connecting with people. Social media brings brand awareness. So one of the things we'll talk about is making sure you have a consistent brand when you're online. But you can really show what your brand is in a couple different very unique ways when you're online. You can give yourself a brand personality. So remember I said earlier, I put a pin in the idea of the different types of marketing, right? We really moved from that door-to-door style to social media, and online marketing became very popular in the 2010s. We've actually even moved an iteration beyond that, because as you've probably noticed yourself, even with the pandemic, everything is online. People have become so over digitized that many online ads and online commercials or posts about businesses aren't getting nearly as much traction as they used to, because it all comes off very superficial. People are getting inundated. There's just too much going on. One of the ways you can combat that is actually marketing has entered a third iteration, where the best way to market is to have a human element. People want to know that they're interacting with another person. How can they connect with you and communicate with you? Do they have something in common with you? You really want to show them who you are as a business owner and as a person, because that is what's going to separate you from all the other ads that are just, in their face, telling them to buy things. So when we talk about brand personality, that is really key. Like I said, social media was used for personal connections originally. When you're on here for your business, think about it still in that way. You are making personal connections with your customers, and you can do that through sharing your brand and sharing your personality online. So like I said, it all comes full picture. You might have said, why are we talking about the basics of social media at the beginning? This is why. The definition really does come into play. There's a lot that goes into making sure you're doing the right thing on social media in this current society. What people were doing in 2010 won't work in 2020 anymore, or 2021. So we really want to be aware of that, which goes into this next third bullet, right? Thought leadership. Yeah, you want to think about what everyone else is thinking about, what everyone else is utilizing in social media. Essentially, that's what I just discussed. You will be able to increase your web traffic. So if you are one of those people trying to draw people to your website or your Etsy shop or whatever it is, social media is a great way to create something called backlinks, which are essentially ways for people to click in your social media and get routed to wherever you want them to actually buy your product or service. So there is definitely increased web traffic when you show up in more places. It helps you manage your reputation. And I tell people this all the time, because a lot of small businesses will say, social media is too much work, I just won't be on there. You might not be on there, but I promise you your business is on there regardless, because people will be talking about your business. For example, if you're using a platform like Yelp, people can write reviews about your business regardless regardless of if your business has a Yelp account, so you're going to be showing up regardless. You want to make sure that you can manage your reputation online by getting ahead of the game and putting yourself out there. You can get some really unique analytics and insights. So like I said earlier, social media isn't a fling it and see what sticks kind of game. You want to see what the research shows is best for you and maybe attend one of these webinars to figure out what's a good fit. But most of these platforms let you look at the back end and review who liked what posts. What were the demographics of the people that liked your posts? Those are the kinds of things that are going to help you figure out your marketing strategy going forward, what things you want people to see more of, and what people like you should probably post more of versus the things that people aren't liking as much, and so on. So it's really important from a continued strategy perspective to use these platforms because they give you those analytics for free. You can analyze your competitors. That's a great way to use social media. If you're especially a brand new business, which some of you might be because this is kind of a beginner's basics course, you might be saying, well, I'm trying to get into this space. I don't know who my competitors are, or I don't know how to price my products. Well, if you're selling cupcakes, for example, look at other cupcake bakeries near Philadelphia, for example. Check out what their social media looks like. Check out what their prices are. See what they're doing. See that as a comparison for what you might want to do, but also see it as a comparison for how you might want to differentiate yourself. You want to be different from other businesses. So by seeing what others are doing, you can help to create your own brand personality, right? So it's all coming together. And you can also decide if you want to do things like targeted advertisements. And social media has all of this demographic information baked into it. If you were someone who wanted to pay for ads at any point, we'll touch on that a little bit later, you can create targeted ads based off of the people that are already on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, et cetera, who have provided that demographic information to these platforms. So there's really a huge amount of stuff that you can do on social media. And you might be saying, yeah, I think I knew some of that already, Sarah, but maybe not in these words, right? So when you're thinking about your business or starting your business, you want to start thinking about that business mindset. And these are some of those things that when you're thinking about social media, you want to keep in the back of your mind is, am I doing this because it's raising my brand awareness? Am I doing this because it's getting me more sales? Am I managing my reputation correctly? Those are all going to be really key. So I don't see any questions in the chat right now. If anyone has a question, let me know. But for now, we're going to jump into the social media platform. So we just talked about why they're important. Now let's see what some of the big ones are, where you might want to go with them, and then we'll jump into how you can use them for your business. So this is just a really quick image. I won't spend a ton of time on this slide, but just to show you that there are tons of social media out there. We will not be talking about all of them today. And depending on where you want to do business, for example, nationally versus internationally, there might be other social media platforms that are significantly more popular in other countries. So we'll take a second to look at the most popular ones here in America, but keep your mind open to what else is out there. Google Plus really isn't that popular in the United States anymore. Other countries still use it very heavily. We don't even use platforms like WeChat, but that's super popular in China. So depending on what you're looking for, there are tons and tons of platforms. But if you're starting out and you're thinking one of your first questions is, Sarah, well, that's overwhelming. Where do I start? Let's start with the ones I'm going to show you today. These are by far the most popular and the ones most used. First and foremost, going right off of that sentence, is Facebook. Facebook is by far the most used social media platform in the United States and in the world. What's really useful about it is that it has a varied audience. So compared to other platforms where there might be a skew towards many people being younger or many people being older, you can get almost any age group on Facebook, and they're from all different backgrounds. So there are actually over 2.7 billion active monthly users. That's more people than there are in the United States, obviously. So this is, even from an international perspective, one of the most popularly used platforms, and you can use it personally or for your business. So some of you have probably used Facebook before. If you haven't used Facebook, I would love for you to just let me know in the chat. I'd just be curious to know who hasn't used Facebook yet. And if you haven't used it for your personal use, which is fine, I definitely recommend taking a look at what it means for your business. So what I have right here is an example of what's called a page, a business page on Facebook. Facebook, you can make a personal account. You can also make an entirely separate account for your business. And when you have a business page, it comes with different options. Okay, yeah, I see a couple people saying they have not used Facebook. So, I mean, like I said, it's not something that everyone uses or wants to use, but it is highly popular. So, like I said, you can make a personal profile, which has some limited functionality. You can't do as much in terms of, paying for advertisements and things like that. But you can also make a business page. So this example right here on my slide is of a business page where you'll probably put a picture of your logo. You can write status updates. Anyone that follows your business page account will see all of the updates that you post. So definitely take a look at this from that perspective. What do you do on here? You post photos, videos, you can post news and updates. Someone just posted in the Q&A, I have a Facebook for personal and trying to start a business account. Should these be separate accounts? Yes. So as I just discussed, right, you can have a personal account. Your business account should be different because Facebook actually has that capability for you to make a specialized business page. And it has the ability for you to pay for ads, to look at the analytics. You cannot look at analytics on your personal page, and it shows up under businesses. So for example, if you said, oh, well, I just want to convert my personal Facebook for Sarah Mailloux and just change the name to say, I don't know, Sarah's Cupcakes or something, and then just use that as my business page. I don't recommend that because the Facebook algorithm won't work the same way. It might have all of your friends, but that's not the same as having followers per se. Facebook might catch on. Some of the programs like Facebook and LinkedIn don't like when you do that. And also you won't get those additional benefits from having it be a Facebook page. A Facebook business page. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I will say before we even jump onto Instagram in a couple slides, that in case you didn't already know, Facebook and Instagram are owned together. Facebook bought Instagram. So when you make a Facebook business page, you can tie it to your Instagram as well and post things at the same time, but it has to be a business page. So that's another reason you might want to take a look at this. Peggy, they don't need to be separate emails. So someone asked if you have to have separate emails to make your Facebook business page and your Facebook personal page. You do not need to. If you want to, because you want to have it separated for yourself, I do recommend to have most of your business information separated, separate bank account, etc. You can, but it's certainly not required. What I will say is if you're putting contact information anywhere on your business page, you might want a business email anyway, just so people aren't messaging your personal email. But we can talk about that more as well later. And like I said, we do full webinars for each of these. So if after today you're thinking, I really would love a deeper dive into Facebook, take a look at our upcoming calendar. We normally do Facebook in May, which I know is very far out, but we might be doing it sooner as well. And we have a recording of the one we did last May on our YouTube as well. So you can always review the more detailed versions of these. Just some interesting perspective though. Like I said, you want to be where your customers are. And actually, 3/4 of Facebook users visit the site on a daily basis. And you can see the spread here for other social media. It is used significantly more per day than even Instagram or Snapchat, YouTube, Twitter, and the rest just kind of peter down from there. People are on Facebook not just once a day, but several times a day. So if you're trying to find an active and engaged audience where you can make multiple posts or get new people to follow you, Facebook is definitely a great place to be because people are on here all the time. And then you might want to look at the demographics. So Facebook is one of the easiest to use. It's very user-friendly, lets you have a separate business page, which is great. But who are you trying to reach, right? We're talking about that market research. Yes, Facebook is the most popular, but if you're in the manufacturing industry, for example, does it make as much sense? Maybe, maybe not, as the cupcake place down the street. Here are some demographics to kind of help you figure that out. So one thing I will say is 75% of females and 63% of males, and this is taken from a spread, this one on the left-hand side is just a spread of the United States, are on Facebook. So regardless of which gender you're trying to reach or gender neutral, whatever it is, many people, regardless of gender, are on Facebook. You can see the age, 80% of people aged 18 to 29 are on Facebook. So by far the most people on Facebook are in this range. I'm sorry, and 30 to 49. So these are two are actually even. Excuse me. So what we're talking about here is a lot of people like I said, this is the younger millennials, right? Because millennials are actually people aged 25 to 35 at this point. So you're really looking at millennials and then Gen X, people who are maybe starting families, who have careers, who have kids, people in those older generations. And then even when you get to people age 50 to 64, 68% of people in that age group are on Facebook. So Facebook is definitely one of the social media platforms where if you're trying to reach an older audience, you will definitely see significantly more people on this platform. So if you're someone who's trying to reach adults or people going into retirement or people at that other older stage of life, this is a great place to be in comparison to some of the other ones. And you'll see why when we get to them. What I will say is, as popular as Facebook is, younger generations such as Gen Z don't use it as much. So if you're someone who's trying to really closely sell to teenagers or young college students, not nearly as many of them are on Facebook. And even if they are not the ones who are on there multiple times a day. They have found other platforms that they enjoy much more. So that's just something to think about from that perspective. When it comes to where they're located, for example, like I said, do you want to sell in Philly? Do you want to sell in DuBois, PA, where it's more rural, for example? You can see the location here, it's pretty even. So regardless of where you are, urban, suburban, rural, people are on Facebook. So that's good to know depending on what location you're looking towards. When it comes to income, same thing, there's a very even spread. So regardless of income, on that beginner slide, I'd mentioned more, I wouldn't say wealthy, but generally people with a more steady income utilize social media. I'm not going to try to take a guess on why. Maybe it's because they have the extra time, not entirely sure. But that's not true for every social media. Some of them are so popular that they're used regardless, such as Facebook, no matter what income level you're trying to reach. And I would say the same for the education level as well, which is really interesting because not all of them skew that way. So that might sound really big and ambiguous when you're like, well, is Facebook right for me? The answer is for most people, yeah, it's a good place to start for sure. I put this other chart on the right here just to really quickly show you that it is used internationally. And even though it is very, very popular in the United States, it's even more popular in India. So if you're even looking at that international interaction, Facebook is huge. So I do encourage you to take a look at it from that perspective. So that's a little bit about the demographics. Take that information and decide if Facebook is a good fit for you. Like I said, for most people it is. And then we're going to take a look at Instagram. And I go right into Instagram because, like I said earlier, Instagram was bought by Facebook. And because of that, they integrate together really well. So if you're someone who is in the beginning stages of social media and thinking, where do I start? The Facebook Instagram duo might be a really great place to start, because they have so much connection. You can make posts that go to both. You can look at the analytics of them together. So I'm just going to pause really quickly because I think I saw a question come into the chat here. So Peggy said for Facebook, when I try to create a business page, it's linked to my personal. Yes, that is true. So when you're on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, I will say, we'll get to LinkedIn in a second too, it has to be tied to a personal page. So you can't just go onto Facebook or go onto Instagram and make a business account without having a personal account first. It's fine that it's linked, so what I mean by that is, if I had a Sarah's Cupcakes Facebook page and someone Googled it, they wouldn't be able to see that this was then owned by Sarah Mailloux, if I want to keep who owned it or what my business information was separate. But you do have to have it linked in the back end. So that's very normal, Peggy. I wouldn't be worried about that. And then Lenore said, can I have an Instagram business page that is separate from my personal account? I do want to keep them separate. And the answer is yes, same thing. So we're about to go into that with Instagram. Instagram is, because it's owned by Facebook, they've made it very similar, right? Where you have your personal account and then you have a business account. And Caitlin said the business suite for Facebook and Instagram makes posting really easy. Yes, so I was just about to touch on that. Let me talk a little bit about Instagram. And then I'll briefly mention the Facebook Business Suite, which is where you use the two of them together if you wanted to. I don't want to get ahead of myself for any of you. I know some of you had said you'd never used Facebook. Some of you might have never used Instagram. Like I said, this is just trying to give you an idea of what these platforms do, because they do different things, who's on them, and then we can take the next step, to figure out if you want to get on it, how you get on it. So like I said, our monthly social media series, we walk through in those webinars step by step how to set up these accounts as well, if that's something you're interested in. But for right now, what is Instagram? I just spent all this time talking about Instagram. There are some people in the chat saying, oh, how do I connect Facebook and Instagram? And some of you, I don't want to assume, some of you might be saying, well, I've heard of Instagram, but what does it do exactly? And I think maybe the majority of people do realize that it is a photo and video sharing platform. And it does have a very high user base. So, we said Facebook had, somewhere around 27 billion. Instagram has about 1 billion. So it's not as many. It also hasn't been around as long. And it definitely has a different feel to it. So people aren't going on there to share status updates as much. It's not just a static post with words. People aren't necessarily going on there just to write about, maybe their business sale or things like that. Instagram is more personable. People are sharing pictures and videos. There are a ton of different tools within Instagram. So we do a full series on Instagram because it's got a lot of fun stuff in there. But for example, you can do live videos. You can do Facebook live videos as well, where you take your phone and you just talk live in front of people. It has IGTV, which is longer videos, like 40-minute, hour-long, videos meant to be like TV episodes. You can make things called stories, which are just, they're kind of like a post that is only up for 24 hours. So if you want to just share something really quickly and then pull it back. They have reels, which are short videos. And because Facebook and Instagram are integrated together, all of those things also are on Facebook. You might have noticed recently, maybe within the last year or two, Facebook had some updates, and now you can have Facebook stories, which is the same thing. You put a picture up and it's only there for 24 hours. They do that because Instagram does that. So these two are very intertwined right now. But the big difference is, even though they're intertwined, you might be saying, I don't really want to be on Instagram though, Sarah. That's okay. You can make a Facebook business page and never go on Instagram. You're not required to do so by any means. But if you were going to make a Facebook and an Instagram, you should use the interconnections that they have. But they do use Instagram. It's very personable. So people post photos of their family, of their food, of their relationships. But businesses have also capitalized in it in a way where if you have a product or service that is very picturesque or something that is very eye-catching, Instagram is a great way to get attention because a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? You can really grab attention much quicker with a picture. And I think there's a study that says, you have about 5 seconds to grab someone. It's like the attention span of a goldfish, right? You have 5 seconds to grab someone on social media when they're scrolling through posts. And it's so much easier to do that with an image. So there is a lot of value to being on a completely photo-based platform. One thing I will say is Instagram is almost entirely mobile. So for those of you that maybe don't have a cell phone, Instagram is going to be a lot harder. You can view someone else's profile on Instagram on a computer. But if you want to make a post, upload a video, follow people, share information, you have to be using the mobile app on your phone. Let me reiterate that because I made a blurb with my mouth. Entirely mobile, phone. So Instagram is for your phone primarily, but you can post a lot of really great stuff on there to keep people engaged with you. And when we talk about that human element, Instagram is great for that human element, posting things about you as a business owner alongside posts about the products you're making or a short video about how you make your product. That's the stuff that people really engage with and will really enjoy. One other thing that is new just within the last year, I mentioned this in one of my webinars earlier in maybe February of this year, is Instagram just made an Instacart. So now you can have a business profile on Instagram, but you can also have an ability for people to buy right off of Instagram and not have to get linked off to your own website. So that has been a game changer for a lot of people. And that is definitely a topic worthy of an intermediate level Instagram discussion. But for right now, I just want you to know that that exists. There is a lot of cool stuff going on with Instagram. So same thing, you want to be where people are, right? So we talked about the statistic a little bit earlier. Instagram may not have as many views several times a day as Facebook, but it's the next one up there. So people normally go on Facebook and then they go right to Instagram. People love looking at those pictures and seeing things like that. Someone asked, does Instagram own the photos and videos that you post? No, that would be your profile owns that information. They can't utilize that. You're more than welcome to take it down. I don't want you to worry that they will own that content. It's kind of similar to Facebook, where the content is on your page. Technically, I think Facebook has some regulations where they can remove information that they think is quote unquote profane or inappropriate or whatever. Since Facebook owns Instagram, they have some of those similar capabilities, but they don't need it nearly as often because a lot of Instagram is just picture worthy. There's not as much to be, what's the word, scrutinized. Facebook gets a little bit more into the facts. Instagram, there's not as many of those dichotomized things going on there. It's really more of just sharing information about yourself. So who's on Instagram, right? Instagram's pretty cool. If you have something that's worthy of taking pictures of, you might want to be on there. But like I said, consider your business. If you're someone who is an accountant, for example, I'm not saying you can't be on Instagram, but I would make sure that you're posting pictures and videos that are engaging. If you're someone who's selling cupcakes, it's really easy to make photos on Instagram because cupcakes are so colorful and nice to look at. So you want to make sure that if you are going to invest the time in here, that you're making a profile that's worth gathering attention. Maybe, Instagram is not the right place for you because you don't have something that's photo and video specific or something that works well in that space. But if you were going to consider it, what people are you trying to reach? Well, there's more females than males on Instagram, but there are 30% of males in the United States do use Instagram. So there's still a significant number of them on here, but I would say it does skew a little bit more towards female. And this is certainly in the younger generation. So when we look at the age, definitely Gen Z, 13 to 17-year-olds, 72% of them have an Instagram. 18 to 29-year-olds, 67%. And then it just kind of goes down a little bit from there. So I would say definitely if you're looking at people from age 50 and below, Instagram is a great place to be versus Facebook, where you might want to be looking at 20-year-olds to 60-year-olds. Instagram skews just a little bit younger. What I will say is also Instagram skews significantly towards urban. So, previously we looked at Facebook. Facebook, you did pretty well in rural. Instagram is definitely more used in the suburban and urban space. Income, people tend to have slightly higher income on Instagram, which is kind of interesting. I would be curious to see, some of information on why the studies have that. But if you're looking for people that make 30K or more, you're going to probably find them more on Instagram. And the education is still pretty standard. Maybe a tiny bit more people have college, but not necessarily. So same thing, pretty good spread. If you're someone who's in Philadelphia and have something that's picturesque, maybe Instagram is a good place to be. And then, like I said, over here on the right, just really quickly looking at, what country leads the audience base. Instagram significantly has the biggest audience base in the United States. So, versus Facebook, where many more people were using it in India. Right now, US still leads the pack with people using Instagram. So it's definitely popular. It just continues to get more popular. Like I said, they just introduced Reels, which are those small videos. And they did that directly to compete with TikTok, which is an entirely video platform that we'll talk about later. And they also added Instacart to keep themselves relevant. So they're constantly iterating and adding things to their site to get people to go there. So definitely, take a look at what's going on in the Instagram world. And then someone in the chat said, I have an app for my desktop called Photo Feed that can be used just for posting. But so many features about the account are only available on phone. Yeah, exactly. Instagram is really phone-based. I would almost see if you can get that app, the Photo Feed for Instagram app, on your phone. See if you can get that on your phone, because it probably won't do as much for you on your desktop, because like you said, you can't post from a desktop on Instagram. The one caveat I will say, the one difference is, I did say I would mention Facebook Suite briefly. If you're posting things from Facebook Suite, Facebook Business Suite is really meant to be on a computer. You can use it on a mobile. It might be a little scrunched, but you can certainly use Facebook or Facebook Business Suite on your computer, and it's very easy to do so. And when you're in Facebook Business Suite, which you can only do with a Facebook business page, remember, you can tie that to your Instagram business account. Same thing. Instagram will make you have a personal account, and then you can make a business account. But then you can actually post things to both at the same time and then you might not need to be on your phone as much. Another thing I will say is Facebook lets you schedule posts in advance. Instagram does not, but if you're in Facebook Business Suite, you can post things to Instagram in advance. And we'll talk a little bit more about scheduling strategies in a little bit, but those are just some key things to think about. These two tie very nicely together if you have something that works for Instagram, and if you don't, then maybe you just want to look at Facebook. Next up is Twitter. Twitter, I'd be curious if anyone hasn't used Twitter, let me know. I think this one is definitely more popular in younger generations or people in professional circles. It's very different from the Facebook and the Instagram that we just looked at, right? Facebook and Instagram are really all about sharing information. Maybe you're sharing posts. You have, like I said, Instagram is very photo friendly. Twitter is different. It's specifically short little baby bits of information. You know, baby bird, it's a little tweet. It's a tweet, just a really quick blurb of info that you're putting out there. And when you're on Facebook or Instagram, many people only post maybe once or twice a day. Twitter is unique in that many people post on there time and time again, multiple times throughout the day. I see a couple people have not used Twitter. So really quickly, what is Twitter? Well, like I said, you really just post short updates and links on there. A lot of companies, bigger companies, will use it for customer service. So a consumer might, make a tweet at Target and say, I really, was upset with your customer service at XYZ store this week. And then the Target profile user could see that and respond to it. So a lot of larger companies use it for that, just because it's a really quick and easy way for consumers to interact with a business. But besides being little tweets, and the reason it's called such a small little blurb is because it's limited to 140 characters or words. I can't remember which right now off the top of my head, but it's a really short, like maybe a sentence or two. So you really have to be succinct in what you're putting out there, but you can also put links that link to a video, that links to a picture or a poll, but it's really just meant for short updates. Someone asked, can Twitter help for sales? I wouldn't say that people go on Twitter as much to try selling their product. It's definitely not like Facebook or Instagram where you want to draw people's attention to a beautiful picture of your product and then have them go to your website. Twitter is more of, I think, from my personal perspective, like an awareness campaign. You're kind of using it to continue to grow the network of people that know that your business exists, or retweeting what other people are posting, or replying to people to let them know that you're out there and that you maybe can help in some way. But I wouldn't say it's normally used as much for a sales platform. So like I said, there are a lot of people on Twitter, might not be the best fit for you. And especially if you have no social media right now, might not be the first one that you personally want to start with. So it does have 330 million global monthly users. We're getting smaller, as you can see. So definitely Facebook had the most, then Instagram. Twitter has quite a few people on there, and they are global users, but it is a little bit smaller of an amount of people. And the demographics are very unique here as well. So the amount of people on here is smaller, right? You can even see that with the percentages. Before, with Instagram and Facebook, there was significantly more. Here, 21% of females are online, 24% of males. So that's not even a huge chunk of the population necessarily, but it does skew a little bit male, just so you know. And I think that's partially just because it's very news update style. A lot of people go on there to get updates on, what's going on with their sports, or what the local newspaper has said, or to find new articles. So that's why I said earlier, it's really got a lot in the professional space. Like a lot of businesses use it to post updates on if they've been in a magazine, or if they were trying to reach a customer about a specific item. The age spread is minimal, but 18 to 29-year-olds do use it the most. Then it's 13 to 17-year-olds. So it's definitely something that I would see more younger people using. And once again, it does spread more towards urban. People use it more in the urban space. Compared to Instagram, it's even less than Instagram in the rural space. So this is really something that I would say it's almost, I'm going to use an older term. I wonder how many of you on the call have heard this term, but yuppies. It's like a young urban professional vibe on Twitter for the most part. So people who are younger, who maybe have a slightly higher income because they have some kind of job, maybe in an urban environment. So you can see that with the income, 32% of people using Twitter have an income of $75,000 or more. So if you're looking for something in that high flash environment with younger people who are professional, maybe trying to spend a little extra money, Twitter might be a very interesting place for you to, hop on the bandwagon. And similarly, 32% of people on there have a college education plus, compared to only 13% that don't have a high school or, high school or less, and 24% that only have some college. So significantly, out of all of the ones we've looked at so far, this one has probably the most clear demographic if you're trying to reach a specific type of person. And then again, we have the spread right on the countries in case you were curious. And once again, this one is highly used in the United States, then followed by Japan, which is kind of interesting. But once again, the United States definitely has a huge following with Twitter. Someone asked in the chat, or I guess maybe they're just commenting, I've used Twitter to connect with entrepreneurs in similar realms. It helps to keep an eye on trends. Yeah, that's one of the best ways to use Twitter, right? So like I said, it's very often used for news updates or short, just little updates on what's going on. Every once in a while, people post links to a picture or a video that they want you to see, but it's always in short form. So it's definitely a great way to connect with people that have similar interests as you, or just see what's going on in that space, right? So in one of my intro slides, I was explaining the benefits of social media. And one of them is competitive research. And as a small business owner, that might not be something, it might not be one of the first things that pops into your head, but certainly competitive research is huge here. You can look at what other people are doing based off of what they're updating people on Twitter, and then go from there. So it's very unique. Peggy, you seem to have some more questions about Business Suite. I'm just gonna hold that off until the end so we can get through the presentation, and then if I have time, I'll answer those. But I don't want to spend too much time on Facebook and Instagram. I know they're super fascinating, but there's so many others out there. So this was a little bit more about Twitter. Like I said, take a look at Twitter if you want. It's free to make an account. You can try your hand at a couple small little tweets, but it's not for everyone. There is next YouTube. YouTube is huge, and many small business owners might not think of YouTube when they think of social media, but it is a social media platform because people are sharing information on there, they're commenting on videos, and it's actually one of the, I think, best kept secrets on how to get ahead in the small business world. There are 2 billion users worldwide, which is huge. That's basically as much as Instagram, more than Instagram, actually, almost as much as Facebook. And why does it have so many users? It's actually a search platform in itself. It's owned by Google. So fun fact, Google is the most used is the most used search platform in the world. YouTube is the second most used search platform in the world. Go figure, right? It's owned by Google. There must be something going on there. But because of that, people are on here all the time, and it has a really good SEO, or search engine optimization. So what that basically means is if you want people to find you and they are Googling for you, how often are you going to show up? Or will you be the first thing that shows up? That's what search engine optimization is all about. And if you're on YouTube, your search engine optimization gets better or higher because it's the second highest search engine. People use it a lot. Your ranking goes up. So it's definitely worth looking at from that perspective. What do people use YouTube for? It's mostly a source of news and entertainment. So similarly, people are going on there maybe to find news articles or news information on things that have been going on in everyday events. Many people go on there just for entertainment, to find TV episodes or their favorite blogger. Many people do video blogs and just post funny items or, personal blurbs about their life or comedy skits, whatever it is. People also go on there to find things that are educational. So you might be going on there to view this video that I'm posting right now, or you might be going on there because you were searching how to fix, the oil change, how to fix or how to do an oil change at home, for example, on YouTube. So you don't have to go to the, place where you normally get your oil change. You can do it yourself. So there are tons of different ways people use this platform. But it really is just a video sharing platform. So many of you probably knew that already, but it's really meant just for video sharing. As a small business is starting out, you might say videos are a little bit out of my league. That seems kind of overwhelming. I don't know how to do videos. That's okay. It's perfectly normal to think that. I'm just putting this out there so you realize that video is very important no matter what platform you're on, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. Videos get higher engagement than any other post. So when you're looking at growing your reach organically, which means not paying for an ad, you are going to grow it so much more with a video than just a static post. So even if you think, I don't know anything about video editing, you might want to try your hand at a couple little short videos of you making your product, or a video of you just saying, hi, my name is Sarah, here's my cupcake shop behind me, here's my deal of the day, or something. Just try your hand at a little stuff like that, because people gravitate towards video, and it really helps rank your SEO. What else can you do on here? You can view other people's videos, you can upload your videos, you can rate and share people's videos and comment on the content. So that's what makes it a social media platform, is that engagement. You're making a community when people can share information under the videos. Who's on YouTube? The answer is a ton of people, actually, right? So 68% of females and 78% of males use YouTube. So this is higher than even Facebook. If you recall, tons of people are on this platform. It doesn't matter what age you are, most people are here. I think 65 and up probably is, significantly less than all the others, just because of maybe a technology gap there, a digital literacy gap. But certainly anyone from age 13 to 64, you can see they're all 70% or more. 18 to 29-year-olds, 91% of them use YouTube because they're searching for something on there, and you could be one of the things they're searching for on there. The spread is good. So, urban, certainly the highest. Suburban and rural, still very good. So no matter who you are, YouTube is a place to be. Same thing with income, skewing just a slightly bit more towards higher incomes. And same thing with education, just skewing a tiny bit more towards people with college educations. But certainly there are a ton of people on here. This is the highest demographic we've looked at, even higher than Facebook. So if you're just trying to, if you were going to choose the tactic of sticking it to the wall and seeing what sticks, which I don't necessarily recommend, but if that's the tactic, YouTube might be a great place to start because that's where the most people are. And I like this on the right, this little diagram here essentially shows, percent of adults who say they have ever used the online platforms on their phone, and most people use YouTube on their phone compared to some of these other platforms, which is also huge because, like I said earlier, in this ever digitalized world, people are using their mobile phone more than almost anything else at this point. So you really want to think about that when you're thinking about what platforms to use. Is if my consumers or the people I want to buy my product are on their phone, then I need to use apps that they can easily search for things on their phone. So someone said, how do you share other people's videos on YouTube? You need to get their permission. Yes, for the most part, you do want to get permission to share things. If, for example, if you're going to go put that on your own website or something like that. But a lot of the videos, like you said, like educational content and whatever, here's the caveat. If you were going to share a video, anything on YouTube is public, right? So you can share a link to a video on your Facebook or your Twitter, and say, hey, check out this really great educational video I just watched, for example, or hey, look at this review of how to do XYZ. You can share those because that's public, and you're just sharing a link that brings them to YouTube, where the original poster still gets the views. But you can't, share someone else's video on your YouTube without permission, if that makes sense. So as far as making your own YouTube channel, that's got to be your own content that you've uploaded yourself for the most part, unless you get permission to have it also be on your YouTube channel. But as far as just sharing links, and that's the big difference here, right? Sharing the video versus just sharing the video link. Yeah, that's public. You can share that anywhere. But that's a good question. So LinkedIn's a big one. I love LinkedIn. And there are 260 million monthly users on LinkedIn. So this is slightly less than Twitter, but LinkedIn is more targeted. What you're doing on LinkedIn is more specific. It is detail oriented and meant to be specifically for businesses and professionals. So it's not used like a Facebook or a Twitter of the world where you might see business posts alongside personal posts. This is all about professional posting. People are on here trying to either get a job or sell their product or, find some kind of new connection to help them in the future. So everyone on here is doing professional networking and branding themselves, branding their business. what you should post on here and what you'll see on here is often a mix of shared and original content. So Lenore had that great question, right? Can I share a YouTube link of someone else's video? Certainly, as long as you give the credit and it goes back to their link. You know, I mean, you can try, for example, downloading a video off of YouTube that's someone else's. It won't let you. So trust me, I mean, it's pretty foolproof. But you might want to post on LinkedIn and say, let's say I'm Sarah's Cupcakes again, just to keep it consistent. And I have a LinkedIn profile, which may or may not be the best fit for a cupcake catering business. But let's say I'm on LinkedIn and I share a couple posts about myself and what I'm doing, but you don't want to just share stuff about yourself. You want to share stuff that helps your network and is educational. So you might share a YouTube video of, maybe it's my own YouTube channel and it's a video of me making my cupcake, or maybe it's a YouTube video on content marketing. Maybe I'm on LinkedIn and I make a post and I say, Sarah's Cupcakes has been hard at work trying to update our content marketing and make our calendar strong. Here is a video we launched to help, you know, our direction, whatever it is, and include the link. That's great. That's content that you just made on LinkedIn. You're helping people. It was professional. It was a great use of that. And you got to use a video off of LinkedIn, which is great for someone else's SEO. So it really does come full picture from that perspective. Who's on LinkedIn? This is another one. This isn't like the Twitter. This one is one where it's really easy to see the spread. It's even more drastic than Twitter, I would say. 24% male, 29% male. So pretty even spread with the genders. But like I said, so we talked about the young urban professional vibe that's on Twitter. LinkedIn is still a little bit older than that, actually. So this is getting almost out of the millennial range and back into Gen X. People from 30 to 50 years old are on LinkedIn the most, because those are the people that are trying to grow their professional networks the most. And there are certainly many business owners that are on here in that age range as well. It does definitely skew towards urban. I think this is the smallest rural number out there. And that, I think, is simply due to the fact that LinkedIn is a professional network for people who are trying to communicate with each other and grow partnerships. And not that people in the rural space do not want that, but, you know, if you're the local agriculture farmer or on the main street, you know, in some small town in Oklahoma, for example, you might not have the need to be on here, because remember what I said earlier, you only want to be where you're going to get your return on investment. If your customers aren't on LinkedIn, then you don't want to be on LinkedIn. So if you're the potato farmer, you know, in Wisconsin, you might say, yeah, I don't think the people trying to buy potatoes from me are on LinkedIn. In which case you don't need to be on LinkedIn then, you know, but make that determination for yourself. But that is part of the reason you see not nearly as many people on here from the rural sector. Income skews high. 50% have $75,000 or more in income a year, and 50% have have completed college. So that's huge when you're looking at LinkedIn. If you're someone who's in a professional services industry like technology, IT, accounting, consulting, psychology, definitely LinkedIn is a great space to be. If you're anyone in the business to business, so anyone who's in manufacturing or trying to sell their product to another business, definitely be on LinkedIn. That's a huge place for that market. The people on the outlier are more of these service, service retail type businesses. You know, if you're selling cupcakes or something similar, or like a toy product or things like that, you might not find your consumers on LinkedIn. You'd have to do some research to see if they're the ones on there. Someone asked, what's the term that you mentioned earlier where a user can embed link to? Oh, that's a backlink. So that, and you're more than free to Google that too, backlinks. That's the correct terminology for a link, basically where you're trying to get people from your social media to your business website or your Etsy or wherever they're actually going to buy the product, right? So like I said, we don't do a deep dive into what each of these profiles look like because this is an intro webinar. But let's say you made a LinkedIn profile, and LinkedIn is another one where you can make a personal page and a business page. I would recommend making a business page for your business. But on your business page on your LinkedIn, you might have a link to your website. Or in your posts that you make on LinkedIn, you might say, hey, here's what I do, blah, blah, blah. Take a look here, and then put a link to your website. Each of those is considered a backlink, something that brings people back to where you want them to go for that call to action, right? What is the thing you want them to do? If it's buy your product or, you know, sign up for your consulting service or whatever it is, make sure that you have those links everywhere. And having social media pages is a great way to spread that information. Someone said, is there a difference between personal and business account? It's very similar to Facebook in that, like we talked about before, you have to make a personal account before you can make the business account. But it also has that extra information, right? So similar to Facebook, when you're on a LinkedIn business page, then you have the ability to pay for ads. You can look at the analytics of who's following you or who to ask to follow and connect with you in a way that a personal account does not. And same thing, LinkedIn will not let you try to make your business page out of a personal account. They actually do track that. And if you do that, they will email you and tell you to close out the account and make a business page. It's just more professional to make the business page as well. Like I said, we have a full hour-long session where I walk through step by step how to make your personal page and then your business page. And if you can't wait for the next time we're doing that, because I know they only happen every once in a while, that's on our YouTube channel as well if you want to do a deeper dive into that. But you'll notice all of the social media platforms kind of play the same game, right? They're all doing the thing where you need a personal and then a business. I think the outliers are Twitter. Twitter, you either make it and it's your name or you make it and it's your business name, doesn't matter, it's the same thing. And YouTube, same thing. But definitely on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, you have your personal account and your business account, and they are separate. Pinterest. Pinterest is a funky one, right? People talk about Pinterest a little bit. It has 300+ million users. It's very popular. It's very popular among older women specifically. It's another one like Instagram, right? Where it's purely visual. People will go on here and it's like a giant vision board, right? So for any of you that have never been on Pinterest, you essentially go on here and you might type into the search field at the top, wedding ideas or flower ideas or, potting plant ideas or whatever it is. People don't go on here to buy things, is what I will say. That's the biggest thing. People don't go on Pinterest to buy stuff necessarily, but they go on there to get ideas. And then it basically comes up with all of this content. And people can pin it or, save things that they like to their own account. They can make little categories, kind of like having a bunch of little shopping carts. But it's not necessarily buying as much as it's just a bunch of different information. And what do I mean by that? I mean, let's say I Googled that potting plants ideas, right? I might find on Pinterest some pictures of people potting plants or some videos. I might find an article or two. I might find some cute inspirational quotes. And I might find some new pots for sale. But it's all mixed in together. So any user can add something to Pinterest and they'll get inspiration. And you might want to put something on there so that they get inspiration from your post. And then maybe, like we said, make a backlink that goes to your website or your Etsy so they can buy that pot. But the disclaimer here is not everything on there is for people to buy, and not everyone is going on there to buy things, but it is another place for you to show up if you were interested. And like I said, I'm pretty sure we're doing Pinterest next month. So this is a big one. If you want to talk about it more, we'll be doing a whole spread on it. But what do you do on here? You would post images and videos, maybe of your products or some ideas or just inspiration to get your name out there, and hope that people see it and like it. And, if they share it, then it creates better search engine optimization for you. And like I said, this one definitely skews towards female. So, 42% female, only 15% of men are on here. It is a little bit older. So 35% are from age 30 to 50, 34% age 18 to 29. Doesn't matter where you are for this one, mostly urban, suburban, rural, they're all there. Once again, the income's a little bit higher and the education's just a little bit higher. So this is one of those platforms where you are going to want to think about the real strategy here, and so like I said, we'll do a deep dive on this in a month if you're interested, because it's not a selling platform in itself. It's an idea platform, and you might be able to put some business stuff on there and backlink people to your site, which is really useful from a search engine optimization standpoint. But like I said, only if your demographic fits. What's Snapchat? We're going to do the last two really quickly because I think I'm doing a webinar on Snapchat and TikTok in November as well, because people have asked about these two. These are the two most new ones. So, you can put in the chat if you've heard of them or not. Some of you might have never used them. I'm just curious. Snapchat has a ton of users. It's been around for, I guess, maybe almost like 6 or 7 years now, where it really hit its stride. It has 210 million daily active users, and people are on here a lot. It's similar to Instagram in that it's meant to be on mobile, but it takes it even a step further. You know, I said with Instagram, you can't make posts or really do much of anything unless you're on the mobile, but you can at least pull it up on a computer. Snapchat is mobile only. So if you're trying to reach people on a phone, it's great. If you're trying to reach people that need a computer, maybe not as great. But what is it? It's really a visual social network, and it's known and it's popular because of its disappearing content. So we talked a little bit earlier about Facebook stories and Instagram stories, which you guys might remember. And I said those are like little posts that you would put up for 24 hours and then they disappear. Versus, you know, a static post that you would put on Facebook or your Instagram or your LinkedIn that stays forever. And when people search your profile, they see it. The stories are just a short blurb. And the reason Facebook and Instagram did this was to compete with Snapchat, because that's all Snapchat does. People can send videos or videos or photos, and they get posted to their Snapchat story is what it's called. And it's just there for their friends to see for 24 hours, and then poof, it goes away. So it got very popular from that perspective. It's just like short little burst updates on what you're doing without having it stick around for too long. But Snapchat grew a little bit from there. You can also do mini chats with people. So maybe as a business, you'd be interested in it from a customer service perspective, like having people chat you and ask questions. And you can store images. And then it also, if you look at this image over here on the right, it also started adding articles and other media, you know, so people can, businesses or news journals can pay to have articles and things show up there and kind of be like a little miniature news feed for people. So Snapchat does that in a way to keep itself relevant, but it's really known for the disappearing photos and videos. So if you were a business owner, you might want to be on here, especially if you're reaching younger people, but I'd want you to think about how you are using it and what you are trying to post on here. You know, are you trying to post things that are going to get people to buy your product or go to your website? Because first and foremost, you're going to need people to follow you unless you're paying for ads. And paying for ads is a whole story in itself, but I would take a look at what the goal is with Snapchat. Pretty much, like I said, younger. So 70% of people age 13 to 17 are on here. And then it gets as soon as you hit 15 above, it gets significantly less. It really peters down. It's very, very popular in the younger generation. And because of that, you can see the income and the education spread also are a little bit lower because most of the people using it have not even gotten to college yet. So that's something to consider when you're looking at this. If you're looking at the younger generations, Snapchat might be something you want to be creative with. And then lastly, TikTok is the newest platform. It only had about 800 users worldwide, maybe about a year ago. It has significantly increased since then. There are tons of people using TikTok, and it is known for being popular with Gen Z. And it's funny, right? We're coming full circle on why did Instagram create Reels, right? The little videos. That was in direct competition with TikTok because all TikTok does is let you create and share short videos. So they're meant to be short. And people do funny things on there. They lip sync, they sing, they dance, they might tell a funny comedy bit. People share funny photos of videos of like their cat doing something silly. But I've also seen a lot of businesses get really creative with TikTok, and they go on there and they take advantage of the most popular videos. So what happens a lot is there might be a very popular song and everyone makes a video and they add that song to the background. Or you've probably heard, or maybe you haven't, but there's a very popular thing going on right now with younger generations, especially, it's like TikTok trends, where everyone is like trying to make the same funny dance, or everyone's trying to do the same dare where like, you know, you hide from your boyfriend and scare them, or, you know, just like funny different things like that. And you can capitalize on that. And even if you've gone on Facebook recently, I know some of you said you haven't been on Facebook, but if you do have a Facebook, you might have noticed even with ads from different, you know, smaller insurance companies or from little companies, you know, they are trying to capitalize on those funny TikTok vibes and the way those videos are set up. to create information that then people are willing to watch because they're interested. So you can take full advantage of things like that. For example, and and this might sound silly, for those of you that have never used TikTok, and I'm not very familiar with it either, to be personally honest. Like, I have one, I don't go on it every day. It's just not my generation. But I do know that there's a very popular one right now where you're doing like a dance to kind of like a drop beat song, where you go like this with your hands and you're pushing your information up and down on the screen. And I've seen many businesses do that, where, you have a question at the bottom, which might be, hey, what is Sarah's cupcakes? Cupcakes, how do you make them? And then I go like this, and then you just put your hands up to see a checkbox on the top that says, I make them using XYZ ingredients. And you do it again for another question. How many days a week are you open? And then you point down, and then you can see all of the information for your hours. So there's a lot you can do in this space. If you capitalize on those funny different dances that people are doing, or whatever it is, you can share content about your business and actually really create some cool traction there. Once again, it takes some basic video editing skills. It is a video platform. But if you're creative and you're trying to reach people in that generation, definitely try it. I mean, the worst you can do is maybe not be great at the dance and then post it, and people might still find it funny. I mean, there's a world out there with TikTok. And since it's so new, there's a very possible way for you to create traction without having to try as hard as some of these other, platforms that have millions upon millions of users. And then really quickly, what is the age breakdown for TikTok? Mostly people age 13 to 24. And then, you can see as we get older, it's just significantly less. But, anyone who is just out of college all the way down to middle school, you're looking at the right breakdown right now here is definitely TikTok, and it'll set you apart when we're talking about that competitive analysis, right? If you get on TikTok and none of your competitors are on TikTok, that might really make you stand out. But like I said, it's not for everyone. This is not me trying to push any one platform on you. This is just me giving you some, awareness of what's going on in these spaces, and then you can make the determination for yourself. All right, someone said, have you ever heard that being on Pinterest can help with back linking to your Etsy shop? I have an Etsy shop, that's why I'm asking. Yep, 100%. And actually, that's one of the reasons people use Pinterest the most, especially for trendy things like homemade stuff on Etsy, right? Is people might be searching on Pinterest for, like, let me take that wedding example idea, right? People might be looking on Pinterest for wedding flower ideas because they might not know what they want their bouquet to look like. They'll be seeing different ideas on Pinterest. Some might be just articles on how to make it yourself. Some of the different ideas on there might just be cute pictures. A picture, like a picture you'd see on Google Images, but you can't do anything with it. It's just a nice picture. And then there might be a picture that you put up from your Etsy, and people say, oh my gosh, I love that bouquet. That's exactly what I want my bouquet to look like. They'll click it, and if it was just an image, they might just be able to pin it and that's it. But if they click it and then it says buy here at our Etsy at the bottom, and they can link off and just buy it, there's a really high chance that someone would do that, So I definitely encourage you to look at Pinterest if you're doing anything in the creative space. For sure, that's definitely a way to use it, Deborah. And then someone said, on LinkedIn, I want to use my personal account for new business. Depending on what you're doing, I don't want to recommend that unless you're like a solopreneur. If you're just like an independent consultant or just a one-person shop, you might be able to get away with just using your personal connections. But if you have employees, or you're planning to grow, or you have an LLC, or you're a more established type of business like that, one of the things that we always recommend is make your business page and then utilize the connections on your personal, and put a link in your status and say, hey, we just made a business page. We would love if you could follow that, encourage your friends to follow that. We appreciate, the help or whatever. And do that a couple times to try to get people over onto the business page, because that's really going to serve you best in the long run. All right. So, like I said, I tend to talk a lot, and we had a lot of great questions. We have about 15 minutes left. So I'm going to go through this next part a little quickly. I love all the questions we've had so far. Like I said, you will get a copy of this PowerPoint and a link to the recording, so please do review this and then take a look at our upcoming social media series, and we can do deep dives into all of these. But now that you know what they all are, what are some first things to do for your business? I would say start with a plan. You might have thought this was one of the things I was going to say today, was start with a plan, because I've kind of said that a couple times, right? Like, what is your goal? Do some research, figure out what you want to do, and then create a social media calendar. So we do recommend that you try to schedule your posts in advance. Some things can be spontaneous, right? We talked about how, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram have like those story bursts that you can do, but for the most part, you should be able to plan your content at least a week out, to figure out the good spread of what you're doing. And we normally talk about, what's the 411, is very popular in marketing, which is, for every one post you put up that's marketing your business, and for every one post you put up about a specific promotion or whatever it is, you should have 4 posts that are just educational or expanding on something about you as a person, or sharing an article, so that you don't come off overly salesy or overly promotional. So do think about that when you're planning out your social media calendar. Decide which platforms are right. This is key. Don't make assumptions, do some research, look at the data. The first question is, who is your customer? And some of you might be looking at writing a business plan, or figuring out, when you're going to investors or bankers, they're going to definitely ask you to write a business plan and do some market research. But the first question is always, who is your customer? You need to define that first to know where you're going to find them, and then spend time on the platform where you will find them. We already talked today about how each channel has a different use, different audience, and there's a different goal. So you want to be on the ones that fit your business, and that's not going to be all 7 or 8 of them. Plus, it's only probably going to be a couple of them. Know the audience. How do you do that? A lot of people, after I share the previous slide, go, well, now what? Like, how am I going to know who my customer is? Well, after you've had a couple customers, start collecting some data on what they do, what they look like, what their age is like, where they're located, what they want, and how they behave. This is going to be really important for you. And if you're at the really, really beginning stage and you don't even have a customer yet, maybe do some of that competitive research, right? If I was starting Sarah's Cupcakes, maybe I'd want to go see how much other cupcake places are charging, or what their marketing looks like, or maybe even sit in their cafe and see the types of people that come in to the store. There are a ton of different ways you can get creative with market research, and we do entire webinars on that. So I don't want to spend too much time right here, but you do have to realize this is one of the biggest myths in business, is not everyone can be your customer. Your customer is not everyone. You do have a target market. You just gotta figure it out, and it might take some trial and error, but you do want to be targeted, because if you're marketing to everyone, you're marketing to no one. No one's gonna see that and think, I identify with that, because that's what you want people to do. You want people to see your post and say, yeah, I feel that way. I'm going to do that next step, or whatever the call to action is, or, oh my gosh, I could use that product to solve my problem. You want them to see that connection. And if you're just doing blanket posts, it's not going to reach the people you want it to reach. Use social media to expand that audience. So once you know who it is, revisit that plan. Like I said, trial and error is big, but you can always try A/B testing. That's when you try a post and then try it at a different time, or try saying it in a different way and figuring out which one gets the best engagement. But it's going to be a little bit of playing around, for the most part, and just expand on what is working for you. Take some notes. But social media, like I said, is ever evolving. It's always changing. So you just got to keep an eye on what's working for you, and continue to study what your customers are behaving like. And build those relationships. Like I said, we have moved from the age where just being digital will get you customers. People aren't going to care just because they see the ad. They're going to care because it relates to them, or you relate to them. Build that relationship, respond to them, comment with them, write recommendations for other people or partners, work with influencers, work with your clients, follow them, like if you have a long-term client, follow them on Instagram, like their Instagram posts. That's completely acceptable. Build those relationships, because isn't that what social media was meant for in the beginning, right? We talked about that definition. It was meant to create personal relationships. You are a business owner, you still want to make those personal relationships, because that's the way you're going to keep your business growing. That's how you keep customers. Talked about this a little bit, but you can't just have static posts anymore. It's just not the way it goes. You need photos, videos, memes. Like I said, memes are really popular. Infographics, the behind the scenes, like this is how I make my product or whatever it is. Even if you're just sharing stock photos, but you want to be sharing content that is interesting, that is different. It can't be the same thing every single day. So these are just a couple ideas of where you can create visuals that'll help you out. And I do want you to focus on quality over quantity. So I know I just said you probably want to post at least once a day. You want to plan yourself out a week in advance. But if you can't handle that right now, because being a business owner takes a lot, it's busy, it's a lot of work. Start with just 1 or 2 social media channels. Like we said, you don't have to just go gung-ho and make 6 accounts right now. And only post as many posts as you can handle. If you can only do 1 or 2 a week, that's fine. Start with that. That's better than posting 5 posts that aren't grabbing anyone, that you didn't put enough thought into, or that don't say anything meaningful. You want your posts to have that quality, that connect with people. So definitely, don't stress yourself out and say, oh my gosh, I don't have a post for Thursday. If you don't have a post for Thursday, okay. As long as you maybe post something Friday or the following Monday. But you really want to be honest with yourself and honest with what you can give your clients. Because when people follow you, they're going to start expecting a certain level of engagement. And if you just drop off all of a sudden and stop posting, it's going to turn people off, unfortunately. Use tools. There's so many tools. And actually, I do a whole webinar called Marketing on a Shoestring, where we talk about these tools. Take advantage of tools that simplify your work. Use an engagement manager like Buffer or Hootsuite. They both have free versions. They are schedulers. They will schedule your posts for you. If you don't want to use the analytics in the social media platforms, you can use programs like Google Analytics or BrandWatch to collect all of your analytics for you, and you can see them all together and figure out what posts are doing better, what social media platforms are doing better. That's all information you probably want to know. If you're having trouble making graphics, you can use platforms like Canva, Pictochart. If you're having trouble coming up with content, you're like, I don't even know what to post. I don't have any articles in my back pocket, Sarah. Try using Pocket or BuzzSumo. There are a ton of different platforms out here that you can use. You will get this PowerPoint. You can Google some of these. Go on our YouTube, look at Marketing on a Shoestring. I talk about a lot of these in detail, but find tools that'll help you out. Social media does not have to be stressful. Just figure out how to manage your time, and some of these will really make it easier. Last on this is you want to monitor and respond to those social media comments and questions. So be aware that once you put yourself out on a platform, if someone reaches out to you, they will expect a response. So I don't want you to make a Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, get overwhelmed, completely shut off, and then have people messaging you on Facebook saying, hey, I want to talk to you about your product, or hey, when can I schedule a meeting? And you have completely ghosted. So once you make an account, be aware that unless you close that account, people can reach out to you, and you want to continue that level of customer service where you are aware and you are responding people. Respond where is appropriate too. So just be mindful of that. We talked about scheduling, creating that content calendar, and analytics. We talked about that as well. So you can take a look at some of these questions later. And then really quickly, here are just some FAQs. I know I'm running out of time here. I tend to talk a lot, I'm sorry. But here's just a couple ones, right? Which platform should my brand be present on? Well, depends. That's the answer. We've talked about this a little bit. Pick the channels where you'll reach your target market, and focus on that. So definitely take a look at these recommendations in depth if you're interested in. I think we've touched on this already. When should my business launch its social media? That's another one, right? If you're in the beginning stages of your business, we normally recommend launching social media 1 to 3 months before your business is ready to start selling. For some of you, you might think, that's already too late, Sarah, I'm in business. That's okay. I would say now is a good time to start. But you want to create traction before you even have your business up and running to prepare people. So you already have a line of customers, right? It's really key to start making that pipeline for yourself. The more time, the better, because you're building a community. You're building that online community. So what do I do if the username I want is gone? Like, let's say your business is Sarah's Cupcakes, and I try making an Instagram called Sarah's Cupcakes, and then it's taken. One thing you can do is come up with a new variation. You can reach out to the user directly and see if they can remove their profile if you really want to. It'll really depend on that situation. If an account looks dormant, so let's say I wanted Sarah's Cupcakes, but it's taken, but I look at the profile and they haven't posted in 5 years. You can report that to the social media platform, whether it be Facebook, etc. And they oftentimes will remove the account so you can have the name. You can also file a complaint if you really want to. But a good way to move past this is use a site like NameCheck, which I have here on the right, and check the name that you want your business to have on social media and see if it's available. And this program will show you if it's available on all of these platforms. So that's another thing, right? If you're going to make a Facebook, an Instagram, a Twitter, you probably want the name to be the same. I would recommend the same, but at least, at minimum, similar on all of your platforms. You don't want one to be Sarah's Cupcakes and one to be Sarah's Pancakes and one to be just Sarah Mailloux. Like, that is really confusing in the marketplace. You know, it'd be different if it was Sarah's Cupcakes and Boutique and one was just Sarah's Boutique. You know, that is fine. But you want to make sure it's close or the same, and you can check that in advance before you start making them willy-nilly on this cool platform. But you want to make sure that it's memorable and clear, easy to spell, because you want people to be able to find you easily. So don't pick a name that's overly complicated. It'll make it harder for that SEO to work. What should I post? Well, depends. That's the question, right? This is a general webinar, so you all could be in completely different industries, but you want to post things about who you are, what you do, what you stand for, and then create that persona, right? We've talked about this as well. So you'll notice a lot of the frequently asked questions we get, I like to answer in the webinar, right? You want to think about who you are, because that's what people care the most about, is that human element. Once again, how often should I post? Ideally, at least once a day. If you're on a popular platform like Instagram, or, you know, like I said, the Snapchats and the TikToks of the world, you can post multiple times a day, but I would say at minimum once a day. And you should try to diversify your content. The short answer to, is it okay to post the same content on every single platform, is no. But when you're starting out, it can be hard to make different content for each platform. So you are more than welcome to start off doing so, but you do want to realize you might have the same people following you on multiple platforms. And why are they following you on multiple platforms if it's the same thing on each one? Everything should be a little bit different because each one has a different goal, right? The goal of being on LinkedIn is not the same goal as being on TikTok. So keep that in mind when you're making your content. It's going to be a little bit different, but that takes some, like we said, trial and error to figure out what fits and what works. But I would recommend trying to diversify what you're doing on platforms. And how do I increase my followers? Make sure the content is high quality, optimize that account, be consistent, get others to share. These are all things we've kind of referenced a little bit. I don't recommend doing the buying of likes and followers. Some people get stuck in that. I don't recommend. Another thing is using hashtags. And if you go into any of our, in-depth webinars, any of the platforms that use hashtags, we talk about the purpose of those and why they're important. But that's a great way to help people find your information, even if they don't know that you as a business exist yet. Like I said, there's a ton of great information on these slides, and I more than encourage you to reference them. How do I handle negative comments? You can either ignore or delete the negative commenter if it's bad, like really bad or offensive or just not appropriate. I would just remove it. But if it's something that you can fix, I would address it. I would recommend addressing that, because you're going to gain trust, and engaging with your customers is really important. But if it's just something completely outlandish, it's probably better for you to just remove that so other customers don't see it. This is just some advice on what to post during COVID. I'm going to just skip that for now. What are your next steps? Take a look at our other trainings. We have a ton of trainings. I know someone just said they have an Etsy. We have a ton of trainings on Etsy starting tomorrow. We have website planning workshops. Take a look at what's going on. And if you want to meet with someone one-on-one to go over your next steps, I more than encourage you to do so. Please take a look at our website and sign up for one-on-one consulting. That was about it for me. That's how we talk about social media. Please do feel free to follow us on social media. I just want to make sure I get to any questions that we have in the chat, and then we will close it out. And just one more thing before I do that is I'm going to put a link to a survey in the chat. So those of you that have been with us before know that we do require, well, we do ask that you fill out a survey because we're required to ask that you fill out a survey is what I'm trying to say, to let us know how we did, because this is what allows us to continue to offer these programmings. So I'm going to put that in the chat right now. If you wouldn't mind, it's a 4-question survey. Should take you maybe 30 seconds to fill out. Let us know what you liked. Let us know what you didn't like. Especially with this webinar, we're always iterating. So if you said, you know, I don't like what we talked about in this, or I wish she had mentioned XYZ, that's really great. Or if you're like, I wish I saw more webinars about, you know, X, let us know, because that's why we do this. Someone said, we got multiple people saying we want a webinar about Pinterest. Now we're doing a webinar about Pinterest. So we do take that all into account. So let me see, I'm just going to go through the questions here. So Peggy earlier was talking about this Facebook Business Suite. Is that how you would start an account for business? Or is that just if you're using Instagram as well? That's for both. So even if you're just making a Facebook business page, you can use Facebook Business Suite. You do not need Instagram for Facebook Business Suite, but Instagram will connect into that if you want it to. And then Peggy said, you know, it's confusing because when I started my business account, I can see messages coming from my personal as well as my business. Yeah, that's going to happen. What you can do is actually at the top of your Facebook, you can toggle between the two. So at the top, there should be a circle, right, with your profile picture. And then maybe if you click on it, you can switch to your business account. And then you can also see the different messages there. But I would recommend signing up for one-on-one consulting. Then you could meet with us one-on-one, maybe do a screen share, and we could walk through all of that with you as well. All right, I'm going to see if we had anything in the chat as well here. If you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, please do feel free to hop off. I know this was a long one. There's a lot to can't talk. There's a lot of content to cover in this course. You know, hopefully it was a good start for many of you, and then you can figure out which of the next webinars you might want to see about some of the web platforms in more detail. But for now, that's all from me. Let me see if we have any other questions here. Someone said, can you recommend a webinar on analytics and insights? I don't know if we have one that's just general, but I do know we do have one on our YouTube channel called Google Analytics for Google My Business. I would take a look at that because one of the things you can use with Google Analytics is pulling in all of your social media platforms to see how they're all doing on Google Analytics. So I would maybe take a look at that one. And then take a look at my Marketing on a Shoestring webinar, because we don't talk about analytics during the whole webinar, but I do talk about how you can use platforms that are free like Hootsuite or Buffer and look at your analytics and why analytics are important. But also, when you fill out the survey, please let us know if that's something you'd like to see a whole specific webinar on, because then we could offer something like that. All right, let's see. And then someone said, someone had a very specific question about LinkedIn. So they're a sole proprietor, probably will stay that way. Oh, that's fine. Many people don't want to scale. You know, some people are very comfortable just being, you know, a smaller business, which is fine. Trying to sell artwork and we want to become an LLC, but maybe we just use LinkedIn Personal. That is a great example. And this might not be the same for everyone, but if you're the ones selling your artwork and you're the ones making the artwork, this might be one of those situations where if you already have a good following on your personal and it's just the two of you, you might want to add a link to your website on your personal LinkedIn, because you're not necessarily even, you know, I don't want to say you're not a business, but you're not selling the business, right? You're selling the artwork that you made. And because it's yours and your husband's, and you already have that connection, you might do really well with just your personal account. The only thing I will say is then you can't track analytics. So you can't see how many people clicked the link to your website and see how well your LinkedIn is doing. You know, if you had a LinkedIn business page, then it shows you how many people clicked, and then you could kind of see how well your posts are doing and what kind of people are liking your posts, because that might help inform your decisions. But if that's not something you need on LinkedIn because you will be using Facebook or Instagram or something else for that, then you could probably be fine with the link with the personal. But that you're gonna have to weigh the pros and cons there. And I would love to have a conversation if you want. We can write down some of those pros and cons. But yeah, if you're really, what I tell people, for example, is if you're a solopreneur or a consultant. So for example, let's say I wasn't Sarah's Cupcakes, but I was just Sarah Mailloux, and I'm an independent consultant. I'm a freelancer, and I'm just doing business consulting. It probably doesn't make sense to make a business LinkedIn because I'm not selling a business. I'm selling me. I'm selling my services, and I want people to see my credentials. So from that perspective, you might feel that you with your artwork fall in that realm where it's more important to sell your personal brand and then have people just go to the business website to pay and buy. But like I said, every situation's different, but I definitely hope that gave you some perspective at least into what you might want to do next. Great. All right, see a lot of thank yous. Thank you for attending. I know Monday is a tough one, but we have so many webinars in our schedule. We gotta fit them all in somehow. So I'm gonna put that survey link in the chat one more time. And if anyone has a question, I'm gonna keep the floor open for another maybe 30 seconds, but then we'll just close it out. There's still quite a few of you on here. So if you have something, now's the time to let me know. What is the name to search you on YouTube? That's a great question. You can either, and I'm just gonna put this in the chat, it's Temple SBDC. So if you go on YouTube and in the search bar, you can type Temple SBDC. You can also type my name to see any of the ones that I teach. I don't teach all of them, but I do teach a good amount of them. But you can go on our Temple SBDC channel, and we have a ton of different playlists. So we have the social media series playlist, which has all of the ones, for example, the Instagram one. I think someone just asked what the name of the Instagram video is. Let me just double check. Oh, okay, when is the Instagram? The Instagram webinar that I'm teaching in October is the 13th. Is that next Wednesday, next Thursday? Yeah, sometime next week. But yeah, I'm teaching Instagram basics for entrepreneurs. That's next week. And then later in October, we have intermediate Instagram. So we're doing a double header in October for Instagram. Starting with the basics, I'll be teaching you how to make a profile, how to make a business profile, how to make your post. We're really going to start at that level. And then the one later in October, we'll go over things like hashtags, how to grow your followers, et cetera, et cetera. But also, I think that one's on our YouTube as well. So we have all of those on our YouTube channel. You can review those. And then who do I reach out to for more support for Facebook business page? Send us an email, Peggy, at sbdc.temple.edu, and let them know you want to sign up for consulting. Then we will match you with one of our consultants. We have consultants that specialize in digital marketing. They'll meet with you, probably over Zoom, and we can have a conversation with you step by step, just individually, to go over the next steps for that. Great. All right. Well, thank you all so very much. I know we went over a little bit, which we got an extra 10 minutes. That's not bad. So, thank you all for your time today. If you would like to connect, my information is on the PowerPoint that you will be getting. We'd love to get your feedback and hope to see you on some of our future webinars.